Okay, we're in Revelation lesson 26. This is about the angel with the book. And Revelation chapter 10, verse 1. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head. And his face were as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. So now we have a mighty angel come down from heaven, his feet as a pillar of fire, and clothed with the clouds, and then he had a rainbow over his head. Now, a rainbow is very important in the symbolic meanings and what's involved and what we see on that. We saw in Revelation chapter 4, when John saw the throne of God, he saw a rainbow on there. Now, what was the main purpose for the rainbow?
It's a promise.
All right, the promise that God would not destroy the earth by flood and all that. And so we see a rainbow always appears after a storm. And so if you're looking at a stormy cloud and you see the rainbow, then you're not going through the storm. But if you see a stormy cloud and don't see the rainbow, get your umbrella out. Fire and safety somewhere. It's coming. And so in this, at the throne, when John saw that at the beginning, when he was taken out, this was symbolic of that the church would not go through the tribulation period. And here with the judgment that this angel we'll be talking about later on, this doesn't involve the church. It involves those who are left after the rapture. So those symbols really play an important part. So now, what was the mighty angel clothed with? Well, question number, what was up on the angel's head? Rainbow. And the angel's face was as the sun, and his feet were as pillars of fire. Now, verse 2, and he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot on the earth. And so in his right hand, he had a book, and then upon his feet, you had one upon the earth and one upon the sea. So what did the angel have in his hand?
A book.
All right, a book that's open. Number 5, where did the angel put his right foot?
The sea.
On the sea. And where did the angel put his left foot?
On the earth.
On the earth. Now, why would this be mentioned? Anybody have an idea what the sea represents? The sea is always dealing with multitudes. Multitude of people. And the earth as well. On this. And so this angel is speaking to everyone and everything involved in this. And he cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roareth, and when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. And so you've got 7 thunders, as they, each one sounds, there's a voice. They're saying something. It's just not a rumble that we would normally think of in a thunder. And that I was, of course, where I was raised in south central Texas, we didn't have any hills or anything, just little mountains out there, and you could see forever. And whenever you had thunder or so on, it depends on which way the wind was blowing as well, not you heard very much of it, and which side was involved in that. When I came to Oklahoma, and out in western Oklahoma, around Sweetwater, it was the same way. But then the Lord moved me over to Hodgson, Oklahoma, close to Arkansas, the Ouachita National Forest. Man, a thunderstorm came up, and it came from every direction. I mean, that thunder just rolled around inside that valley, off of those mountains on there. it was exciting. I loved it, man. I could just feel the power of God speaking in that on there. My wife wasn't too happy about it, but it didn't bother me. And so here you've got these thunders. They say something, and this angel, or John, understands it. And but before we get there, when the angel cried like a lion, how many thunders spoke?
7.
And what's the number 7 symbolic of?
God's number.
God's summary, perfection, completion. Okay? Now, when the 7 thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write. And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. And so as John was watching this angel, and he's got the little book, feet as a pillar of fire, and I saw and heard these 7 thunders, he was about to write it, and God said no. He wasn't to write what these 7 thunders said on that. So do not write. So number 8, could John write what the thunder said? No. Would this be lost forever? Will we ever know? Now let's take a look at this. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are therein, and the earth and the things that are therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein. And who's that talking about? He's swearing by who? We created everything. God. So he said, what's about to happen is by the power of God. It's not just me saying it. This comes from God, the one who's created all. And that there should be time no longer. Now, you want to be careful here, as we're going to be getting into, and we'll be talking about time and the end of things on this. In heaven, one day in heaven is how many years on the earth? 1,000 years. So this tribulation period only lasts 7 years, earth time, so how long is that heaven's time? Just a few seconds.
0.4.
0.4 seconds. And then you've got the 1,000-year reign, and that's just one day. So here, saying that time is no longer, though we've got another 1,000 years, that's just a day. And he's talking about the end coming to the earth on this, and where the earth will be destroyed. But then he said, but in the days of the voice of the 7th angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he had declared to his servants, the prophets. And so the mystery of God will be finished at the sound of the 7th trumpet. Now we're in the 6th trumpet right now. In between the 6th and the 7th, I'm sorry. Between the 6th and the 7th trumpet. And so what would be finished when the 7th trumpet sounded? All right, the mystery of God. There's about 10 or 11 mysteries in the Bible that we're to know. And the mystery of God is one that includes all of them. Then you've got different divisions and different sections of that God deals with. Now, in verse 8, and the voice which I heard from heaven spake unto me again and said, go, take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel, which stand upon the sea and upon the earth. And I went unto the angel and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take it and eat it up. And it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand, and I ate it up. And it was in my mouth sweet as honey, and as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. Now was John to take the book and keep it or eat it?
Eat it.
Now what does that really mean? We could take it literally and say, yeah, he did eat it.
Internalized it.
He was to read it, understand it, really get into it. He wasn't just to look at it, okay, that's a nice book, thumb through the pages, that looks all right. No, he was to really digest it, understand it. It was there. And he said to me, thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings. What was in that book and what the seven thunders said, he will explain later before many people and nations, tongues, and kings. So will John be able to share or prophesy what was in the book and what the thunder said? Yes. Now, let me give you the timeline on this, just a summary on here. We find in the Old Testament, the summary of that is the fact of the main part is Abraham, where God promised Abraham that he would have a great nation that would rule this world. And that nation became to be known as Israel. But the nation did not obey God. Under King David, it looked like they were going to accomplish what God was going to have them to do. Under King Solomon, it really looked like it was going to come to pass. But because they would not obey God, God warned them that if they didn't, they would be taken out of the land, scattered among the nations, and they would be under the prejudice of all the nations of the world. They would never feel at home anywhere in that. And the land would become desolate. Well, in that promise that God made with Abraham, it was to Abraham and his seed, not seeds plural. And in Galatians it talks about that and says that that seed is Christ. So the promise was made to Abraham and to Jesus. So the promise will be kept, regardless of what Abraham might do or the nation might do, because it's there. Where that this nation of Abraham, Israel, will be the ruling nation of the world. And the details was given that the king of that nation would come from the lineage of David. And that king would reign on David's throne. And that king would be the Son of God. They called him the Messiah, the Christ, the anointed one, prophet, king. And so you can imagine when Jesus came the first time, at his first coming, and declared that he is the Son of God, those who believed that, especially the 12, they were looking for this promise to be fulfilled. At that time, the land was desolate, barren, you couldn't grow anything in it. The Roman Empire was controlling all the nations of the world at that time. Israel was not a nation. They were scattered all over the world at that. Just a remnant, just a handful was in Jerusalem at that time. During that time, as he came, the disciples thought, all right, he's going to bring everybody back like he promised Abraham, and we'll overthrow the Roman government. They counted their swords on their occasions. Is this the time where we're going to go to battle, we're going to fight it? And then what happened? He was crucified. Man, all hope was gone. Is this really the Messiah? And then he was raised from the grave. Oh man, can you imagine the excitement? The first question was, now will you do that? You understand that? They knew that God would keep his promise to Abraham, but they didn't understand, even though it was prophesied clearly that Jesus would be born of a virgin, that he would come out of Egypt, he would be born in Bethlehem, he would be a Nazarene, and then that he would be crucified for our sins. He would give his life for us. He would die and be buried and raised again the third day. This was all prophesied in detail. That had to happen in order that we would have salvation. But the Jews didn't see that. Even though it was prophesied in Isaiah and other places concerning the tribulation period. They didn't want to listen to that. All they wanted to see was the end result. And many times we don't want to read all that God's going to do. We want to look at the end result. Let's just skip over to the last chapter where everything is okay. You know. And so we do the same thing as they did. Well, come to find out, then God developed the church age. The church was not to replace Israel as God's nation. The church is separate from Israel. The church is to be the body, the bride of Jesus. Israel is still God's elect nation and will be the ruling nation of the world. Jesus will be the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and he will rule on David's throne. Well, he said, now, when will that happen? Well, Israel has to be cleaned up. They're blind in part. And so that blindness needs to be lifted. For that to be done, this tribulation period will happen. Before the tribulation period happens, we'll have the rapture. This is where Christ comes back as a thief in the night. Not everybody will see him. When he comes back at this time, the world doesn't realize that he's done that. Two will be in the field, one taken, one left. Two grinding at the mill, one taken, one left. The dead in Christ will be raised at this time. They'll be in the clouds. And we'll meet them in the clouds. We'll be changed in a moment, quicker than you can blink your eyes. We'll be in our glorified body. They'll be in their resurrected body. We'll be in the same type of body. Only we don't have to experience that burial and all of the other stuff with that. We're taken out, and then that's when the tribulation period starts. And that's what we're in now. This is where in Revelation chapter 9 on through, or chapter 6, I believe it is, on through chapter 19, we have the tribulation period. And we're looking at that judgment to purge Israel, that they would become the kingly nation that God had them to be. Now, at the conclusion of that period, this is 7 years, earth time, we have the second coming of Christ. The rapture is not the second coming of Christ. At the second coming, he comes back in the clouds and every eye sees him. He comes back with his army. We're his army. He's riding a white horse. We'll be on white horses. And at that time, we come back to a valley in Israel that is called Armageddon. The devil knows that. So during this time, at the end of this period, he gathers his armies to that valley and tries to stop us from coming back. Now, we won't be hurt in that. We're in our resurrected body. We'll fight that. Those that are human at that time, that are lost on the earth, they will die in that battle. Blood will flow as deep as a horse's bridles for 160 miles. There's not 160 miles in all of Israel when you stretch it out. But that valley, the amount of liquid that that valley will hold, will be as deep as a horse's bridles for 160 miles. They measured that now with the satellites and the measurements from space, how much that valley will actually hold involved in that. So don't question God. Everything that He says is right to down to the crossing of the T. Now, at this coming, when we come back, Satan is bound for 1,000 years. The Antichrist, the devil's son, who reigns during this time, and the false prophet, they're cast into the lake of fire. The bottomless pit is not hell. That's a place where he'll just be in prison. He'll not be able to come to the earth. He can't go to heaven. An angel puts a chain around him and locks up that bottomless pit. Then we have the 1,000-year reign. During this time, this is when Israel will be restored as a kingly nation. The Jews that have already died in the Old Testament time will come back and reign as that nation, as well as the Jews that will be saved at the end of this tribulation period. They will reign in that nation. We will be here in our resurrected body. We'll be the bride of Christ. We'll sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Though Israel will be the ruling nation of the world, and you'll have lost people on this earth that comes out of this tribulation period, and their lifespan will be extended to 1,000 years. And where anybody that's born during this time can live to be 1,000 years old, just as it was before the flood. So a person who dies at the age of 100 is just a child. That's 10% of their lifespan now on that. And so a lost person that dies at the age of 100 is considered as a child. If they do not receive Jesus during that first 100 years of their life, they'll not receive Him after that. So they have 100 years of grace. How many years of grace do we have? Depends on how long you live involved in that. Not too many over 100 involved with that. But now, during this time, of course, we'll be trying to convince people that Jesus is beside that we used to live on this earth. This is the time when John will come back and explain the little book and the seven thunders that he heard during the tribulation period. Wow, what a tremendous thing that is. You see, we have everlasting life. Now, in America, not in all nations, but in America, we have a little law that if a person is missing for 7 years, then you can declare him dead, or her dead, and you can divvy up their property or whatever that they might have left in that. Well, we leave here, and we're gone for 7 years. We could be declared dead, but there's something about that. Jesus says there's never been a time like it before. I'll be accurate. But those days are shortened. It'll be a few months short of 7 years. Will not be declared dead. So what does that mean? When we come back here, we'll still be responsible for what we left over here. One of the things that I've had the privilege of, and I consider it an honor of God, and nothing that I've done, but just through Him, I've had the privilege of going back and preaching revivals in churches that I pastored. And it would be a number of years after that. Well, I was going back to one particular church, and they'd call me when they'd come back and preach revival, so I did, and I drove up the parking lot at church, and a former member, or a member that was still there, drove up and saw me. I got out and was standing around the car, and they pulled in there right quick, and of course, I hadn't seen them in a number of years on that, and the first right out of the box, he said, "Preacher, do you remember that big spill we got into with the school board?" And I said, "Oh my goodness. Of all things that you can remember, couldn't you remember something good instead of that, which is bad?" And so you learn to do it right the first time, or you're going to face the consequence of it later on. We have everlasting life. We're going to come back and be alive here. So you better get it right now. You think just because you're out of the thing, it's all wiped out. No. All of the former things are wiped out after this earth is destroyed. All right, any questions?